Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome to the first ever episode of Nerd Table. In this week's episode, we're going to delve into GameStop, which is quickly collapsing, going bankrupt, in fact. We'll talk about Wonder Woman and how Wonder Woman is killing the movie theater going experience, albeit inadvertently. We'll talk about Alana Pierce getting a job at Sony Santa Monica, which I think is just so fascinating for the entire influencer and YouTuber community. And we'll also talk about... What was the other thing we'll talk about? Oh, yeah, the VGAs and the nominees for the VGAs. Okay, let's start with GameStop. And I wanted to first get this right off the bat and say very publicly that I love the idea of GameStop, but I do not love GameStop as a company itself. And I don't think anybody really does. And we'll get into that and explain that that's really their problem, is that GameStop has screwed over gamers so much that in the moment where they need them the most, the moment that they're going bankrupt and failing, nobody is in their corner because they fucked over everybody in the process along the way. And of course, gamers, we can tend to hold a grudge, I think that's true, against whether that be companies or whether that be against, developers or companies. In this case, GameStop. We know every time we go into GameStop, we are upsold to and scammed on our trade-ins and, all these other things, and they didn't evolve in the way that they should have. And I'll get into that, and I'll discuss how GameStop actually could have saved themselves. It's not too late, but this article here is discussing how GameStop might be bankrupt by the end of the year. Which is very possible. So I wanted to get that context out there, that I love the idea of GameStop. I love the idea of a brick and mortar game store where we go into the store, we all hang out together, we talk about video games, we have midnight premieres and launch events. I think that's something that is extremely important that we will be missing in losing GameStop. That part of it is very sad. The part of it that is not so sad is that GameStop actually is a pretty shitty company with shitty practices. I mean, I remember back in the day, in fact, I would watch these, 25, 30-year-old GameStop employees upselling pre-orders to children, literally like 12-year-old children who, they don't know any better. They're not going to say no to an adult who is telling them to do something who they might look up to as like, oh, this person works at GameStop. That is so cool that they have this job. I want to emulate them in life. That's just how kids think. And when it comes to GameStop in particular, they would upsell to children who had their parents' credit card, and the kids would come in and the person working at GameStop would be like, hey, you want to pre-order the new Call of Duty? It's going to be sick, bro. Like, come on, you putting your $5 down, this and that. And it was just so absurd. So anyway, reading now from Seeking Alpha. In the last 5 years, GameStop has lost more than 90% of its value, and the company is currently in the middle of reorganizing itself. While the upcoming release of the next generation of consoles later this year might boost GameStop sales, it's unlikely that the company's stock will be able to pick up momentum and appreciate from the current lows. Even Collectibles, a product introduced into GameStop stores no less than 3 years prior to help kickstart its diminishing value, has not and most certainly will not help the company. Still, like many of its longtime customers and even the reliable investors, GameStop is most assuredly headed out the door by year's end. And like many of those still loyal to the brand and its atmosphere, I too will miss midnight game releases. Another headline here that one of the top owners in GameStop stock, owning about 30 some odd percent, also sold all of his stake in the company earlier this week. So lots of bad news for GameStop. They are quickly headed out the door, and this article from Seeking Alpha predicts even by the end of 2021 they could be totally gone and bankrupt. And as I said, it's obviously an unfortunate situation because the idea of GameStop, a brick and mortar store that we can go into and discuss video games with our friends and go to midnight launches, maybe even have video game tournaments, fundamentally that is where GameStop failed, is that they did not evolve as a company to actually appeal to gamers. And in the moment when they need gamers on their side to back them up and support them and rally around them and go put their money in them and almost have like this small business type of mentality of, we're GameStop, we're the underdogs, we're the small businesses, Amazon and Walmart and all those guys, they're the ones who are undercutting us, and particularly PlayStation and Xbox are accelerating the death of GameStop very clearly through the increase of digital consoles, obviously with PlayStation 3, PS4, Xbox One, Xbox 360, there were disc trays in all of those versions of those consoles. Now, because PlayStation wants you to buy the game on their version of the console and their ecosystem, They are keen on selling a bunch of consoles that don't have a disc tray. As a matter of fact, they will save you $100. They will let you pay $100 less for the console to buy the digital version, so that they can get you to buy all of your Blu-rays and all of your movies and all your video games in the Sony ecosystem. That is their play, and it's a very smart play. Because think about it like this. Why is Sony buying a bunch of game studios? Because they want to keep all the money of not only... They want to get in every vertical of gaming, right? They want to be selling modified controllers. That's what Xbox is doing now. They want to be selling consoles. They want to be selling, again, all the equipment for the consoles, and they want to be selling the games. They want every single thing that has to do with the PlayStation they want to own. And when it comes to the games, why do you think all of the best games on the console are owned by Sony? Because they find the best studios, Insomniac, Sucker Punch, obviously Sony Santa Monica, obviously Naughty Dog, if I haven't said that already, some of the top studios in the space. They're going to come in, gobble those studios up, make their games exclusive to PlayStation, and then they're actually therefore incentivized for you to buy the game on their ecosystem because they own the game. And selling that game at GameStop, they get, a commission, they sell wholesale, and obviously if GameStop sells a bunch of copies, then Sony gets paid on the back end via, again, this wholesale system that they have in the game industry. Whereas, if I get on my PlayStation 5 right now, I buy The Last of Us 2, then Sony gets $70. They get a $70 check right now, instantly, into their account from my debit card. Contrarily, via GameStop, they're only getting a fraction of that sale. Obviously, GameStop is taking a couple bucks off of it, and we're splitting up the money here. Whereas otherwise, Sony just gets 100% of the sale if they sell it on their store. So of course they want to build up their ecosystem. Of course they want to accelerate digital consoles and making sure that you buy your PlayStation games on the PlayStation ecosystem. But this is really bad news for GameStop, losing 90% of its value. But the upselling, again, was a big problem. We saw a lot of things that we didn't like in terms of their business practices, and that's why they don't have anyone in their corner right now. The other weird thing is that while the employees were pushed so much to upsell, it was actually not a commission job, which was the weirdest thing about it, is that you were being upsold to as though you were in a car dealership. Right? As if people were trying to get thousands of dollars on the back end of the sale. But in reality, the employees were just told, hey, if you want to work at GameStop, you have to upsell. And there are all these YouTubers that sort of sprouted out of the GameStop crash that has been happening over the last 5 years that we're on the tail end of. One is Fantavision that I happen to watch. And he's really interesting because he has this series where he does tales from being a GameStop employee. And he delves into all of his stories as a GameStop employee and what he had to deal with. And he would be pressured by managers to upsell and, fuck people over on the pre-orders and that type of thing. And it's a scummy business. And as I mentioned, they got paid really shit. The reason they managed to get so many people and to pay people horribly and not have commission and have this toxic work environment where you're forced to upsell to children and all that shitty stuff that nobody wants to do. The reason you were able to do that is because it was video games, and you have these teenagers and people around my age in their early 20s and mid 20s who love video games and are like, working around video games all day, talking about video games all day. That's my dream job. I would love to do that. This is my parlay into working in the video game industry. I'm going to get a job at GameStop. In reality, it's just a retail job. You might as well work at, Walmart or Target. Nothing against that, obviously. But a lot of people are very disappointed when they get the job at GameStop and realize it's not exactly what it's all cracked up to be. But yeah, the employees don't get any commission. So even though they're upselling you, they get a pat on the back, and they might get these kind of promotional bonuses where it's like, hey, whatever, if you're the number one seller in the store, you get a discount on this or this item, or you get this trip or whatever. But in reality, you're pretty much on your own selling this stuff, and you did not get any commission. So it was really quite the weird situation at GameStop, and it's going downhill very quickly. So I do not want it to go bankrupt, because there's that glimmer of hope that maybe they'll turn the tide. Maybe they'll become better. Maybe they won't be as shitty as they've always been as a studio, or as a company. In reality, there's no way they can really save themselves. Now, here's an interesting question. How could GameStop actually have saved themselves and not gone bankrupt? And I think the way they could have done it is by turning their stores into not just game stores where you buy games and trade in games and that type of thing. By creating an actual community, a video game community where people from the area can come in and play LAN tournaments with and against each other. They can, do other things like that, and doubling down on events and turning GameStops into, again, not just stores, but also, like LAN centers and community gaming centers and networks where people can make friends and network and go hang out and whatever. And if they had done that, then, while I'm here playing a tournament with my friends, maybe I will, buy a couple games. Or while I'm talking about games, I'm around a bunch of other gamers and they're telling me about great games I need to play and try. And I'm feeling peer pressured now to be the biggest nerd gamer and play the most games out of everybody. So, of course, I'm going to buy the game right now and go home and play it and come back next week and tell all my friends about what I enjoyed about the game and whatnot. And, that could have built their Game Pass system that they were working on, where you can pay a monthly subscription and come trade in, trade out games, kind of like a Redbox type of situation, but with video games. Really cool. Firefly has been pretty successful in the industry as well, doing game rentals. So it's one of those things where GameStop could have saved themselves. They could have course corrected. They could have made the gamers get behind them. And that's the problem. Not to lean into the meme. I know it's like a whole meme of like rise up gamers, whatever. Don't mean it like that. But, when GameStop's going bankrupt right now, I imagine a lot of people in the comments are going to be like, fuck them. Fuck GameStop. They fucked me over on my trade-in on my console. They, scammed me on this pre-order. This employee signed me up and pre-ordered games for me without my consent on my account. I mean, there's so many stories like that of people dealing with this. It's just like, why are they so shitty? Why do they have to be like that? If right now fans loved GameStop, when I'm reading this article about GameStop lost 90% of its value and it's going downhill and this and that, like, we would all be like, hey, let's all make an effort to buy our shit from GameStop this year. Let's all buy our games at GameStop. And yes, it's not as convenient. I go to the midnight launches, which is fun, but it's better to have my game just preloaded on my console at midnight. Like, there are advantages to not buying physical. Those challenges might be insurmountable to the GameStop business model. It might be that they can't overcome those challenges of the digital era, in the same way that Amazon is killing brick and mortar stores and grocery stores and other things like that. It might just be that the PlayStation online ecosystem, the PlayStation online game store, is just too powerful and GameStop can't beat it. But they could at least have a rallying effect where fans are like, you know what? We don't want GameStop to go out of business. We want our brick and mortar game stores. We want to collect physical game copies. We want to do this and that. So we're going to make an effort to save GameStop. We're going to, whatever. I might even trade in my Xbox One and get scammed by them if it meant that I actually wanted the company to succeed. And again, I love the idea of GameStop. But in a way, they kind of deserve it because they're shitty. And shitty people deserve to go out of business sometimes. When you treat your customers poorly, then you're destined for failure in business. Customers are number one. And their business model is failing, and nobody is rushing to their aid because we felt shafted by them for so long as a gaming community. And it's a shame that we don't have another alternative brand of like, a actual, branch of GameStop type service where it's actually fun and where the managers are not total dicks and where they actually are invested in building a community of, gamers in that area. But instead, GameStop is destined for failure, and, unfortunately, it just is what it is at this point. But hopefully they can turn it around. I don't want them to go bankrupt, but I'm just saying that if they do, they kind of deserve it in some sense too. So the Game Awards announced their nominees for a bunch of different categories, and I wanted to run through what I think is going to win in these categories, how everybody's looking and stacking up against one another. And please leave your thoughts down below on all of these categories if you have any thoughts. So I first wanted to start with Game of the Year and who I think is going to win in this category. So we have Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII, the remake. I don't understand how a remake could win Game of the Year, but that's neither here nor there. Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, which I've heard a lot of good things about. And I get a kick out of this one. Animal Crossing New Horizons, indeed, was nominated. And The Last of Us Part 2. So out of these 6, I think The Last of Us Part 2 will probably win, which will cause a lot of controversy online because a lot of fans did not like The Last of Us Part 2. I understand, because their favorite character was killed in the first 90 minutes of the game. That was something that people were not expecting, and they viewed it as, frankly, a bad surprise that they didn't want to see. But again, The Last of Us 2 is really the case of the divide that we have seen, the growing divide between the sort of industry insiders and fan reviews. We saw this with BBS and other films, where fans are like, yeah, this is actually good. We like this. The critics might bomb it, and vice versa. You know, maybe the critics will say, oh, this product is so amazing. This is such a great movie, like The Last Jedi. And the fans are saying, no, this actually sucks. But I think The Last of Us 2 is probably going to win Game of the Year. We can also go down to Best Narrative. The Last of Us 2, Hades, Ghost of Tsushima, Final Fantasy VII Remake, and 13 Sentinels, Aegis Rim. I have not played Hades yet. I've heard very good things about it. If I had to guess, The Last of Us 2 will win Best Game Narrative as well. If we go down to Best Score and Music, very surprised to see Spider-Man Miles Morales not nominated here. We have Ori and the Will of the Wisps. We have The Last of Us Part 2, Hades, Final Fantasy VII Remake, and Doom Eternal. So Final Fantasy has great music. Doom Eternal has pretty good music. Last of Us Part 2 probably positioned to win this one. Music is a pretty big part of that game, sort of thematically and tonally as well, obviously, with the guitar at the end of the game. I won't get into that, but it's definitely, music is of great importance to that game, and since it's going to take Game of the Year, it probably will win in that area as well. If we go down to Best Performance, very excited to see that Miles Morales was nominated. The voice actor of Miles Morales was nominated. Najee Jeter, I believe is how you say his name. We also have Logan Cunningham as Hades. Daisuke Tsu as Jin Sakai. Sorry if I butchered that name there. That's in Ghost of Tsushima, obviously. Laura Bailey as Abby, and Ashley Johnson as Ellie, both in The Last of Us 2. In terms of best performance, I think that Najee Jeter, Miles Morales, actually has a pretty good chance at winning here. Granted, if the night is going to go how I think it's going to go, which is heavy for The Last of Us, we're probably going to see Ashley Johnson or Laura Bailey get it. Maybe even Laura Bailey could win as Abby. I could see that happening as well. So I think it's probably between Laura Bailey as Abby and Najee Jeter as Miles Morales. Obviously, a lot of excitement around the Miles Morales game right now, particularly with the timing of the game just coming out. But curious to see how that turns out. We can get into best ongoing games. Apex Legends, Destiny 2, Call of Duty Warzone, Fortnite, or No Man's Sky. So these are games, what was the best this year of a game that was out in the prior year and has made great strides and improvements. I would say for me, Apex Legends probably takes the cake here, although Call of Duty Warzone has really, really blown up. It's become super popular, which is great to see. I'm a huge Call of Duty fan, and I love to see that it's successful. Apex Legends, though, has really, really had a lot of ongoing community involvement. And you can read here in the subsection, awarded to a game for outstanding development of ongoing content that evolves the player experiences over time. To me, that has Apex Legends all over it because they introduce the new map and they introduce new characters all the time. Very surprised to see Rainbow Six Siege not nominated here. I would have voted Rainbow Six Siege. I think that Rainbow is better than all of these games when it comes to ongoing development of player content that's evolving the player experience over time. As this description entails, I think that Rainbow Six is better than all of these games in terms of that, in terms of community involvement and constantly upgrading the game. Out of these, though, again, I'm probably going to say Apex. Probably Apex. We can go down to best mobile game. Among Us is clearly going to win here. Call of Duty Mobile is going to be a close second, but Among Us will definitely win in that category. And here's an interesting category. Best community support. Apex Legends, Destiny 2, Fall Guys, Fortnite, No Man's Sky, or Valorant. And I think that Apex Legends will probably win here as well. Fortnite has pretty good community support, but the player base is so young in that game that I think that Apex Legends is probably going to take the cake. Although No Man's Sky has famously had a big turnaround, but I don't think this year they're going to win. You know, they could have won maybe a year ago, but not this year in that category. Innovation and accessibility, Last of Us 2, Watch Dogs Legion in their best action game. Very curious to see that Spider-Man Miles Morales is not on there, but Spider-Man Miles Morales was nominated for Best Action Adventure, and here are the nominees for Best Action Adventure: Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Ghost of Tsushima, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and The Last of Us Part 2. I think that out of these games, it's between Ghost of Tsushima, Spider-Man Miles Morales, and The Last of Us Part 2 for Best Action Adventure. Out of those three, Ghost of Tsushima, Miles Morales, and Last of Us Part 2, I am inclined to say Spider-Man Miles Morales, actually. Because if we're looking at Best Action Adventure, Spider-Man Miles Morales has better action than Last of Us Part 2, for sure. And it probably is better action than Ghost of Tsushima. Again, that's not combat or, whatever, gameplay. It says action. Spider-Man Miles Morales is an action-packed game. It's a very, very bold superhero video game. And obviously there's a lot of action and a lot of adventure in superhero games. I think that Spider-Man Miles Morales should win here. I don't know if they will. I don't know if Ghost of Tsushima somehow steals this one. The other thing is that I see The Last of Us Part 2 dominating Ghost of Tsushima throughout the night. And because people feel as though Ghost of Tsushima deserves to win, so at least some categories, they might get kind of a pity pick in a couple categories. Because it's like, normally they would dominate. Ghost of Tsushima and Sucker Punch would dominate. If The Last of Us Part 2 didn't come out this year, they probably would win a lot of these categories. But because Last of Us 2 is here and is going to dominate the night, they're kind of limited in that sense. So best fighting, we obviously have Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate versus Street Fighter 5, One Punch Man. I'm getting hiccups, so that's good. Very, very interested to see how some of those turn out. And then obviously we can get into Best Sim Strategy, Desperados 3, Crusader Kings 3, Gears Tactics, Microsoft Flight Simulator, and XCOM Chimera Squad. Probably XCOM will win that. So that's pretty much it. And then, finally, we'll end with Best Multiplayer. Animal Crossing, New Horizons, interesting. Among Us, Call of Duty Warzone, Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout, and Valorant. I think Among Us probably wins here as well. So, guys, the Game Awards are right around the corner. Who do you see dominating the VGA nights? And then, obviously, we can discuss reveals that we would like to see. I think that Gotham Knights is very likely to have some sort of content revealed here, and maybe a release date with some other additional trailer. I would expect more on the Court of Owls and the villain and the actual plot of the game. So the Game Awards coming up in less than a couple weeks here, 2 weeks. So I would absolutely love to see some more from Gotham Knights. I think we could see a Grand Theft Auto reveal, GTA 6 potentially. Obviously, publicly, they've said they're not going to do that, but they could say that and then end up showing up at the Game Awards. So a lot of possibilities there in terms of reveals. We'll just have to wait and see what we get from the Game Awards in terms of reveals. So let me know in the comment section below, who do you think is going to dominate the night? It looks like it's going to be either a Last of Us night or it's going to be a Ghost of Tsushima night. I don't really see it going any other way in terms of a mix between the two. I think that it's going to become very clear that fans have, voted for The Last of Us Part 2 to dominate the night or Ghost of Tsushima. Obviously, the Game Awards are fan-led in terms of voting, which provides a pretty difficult challenge for The Last of Us because fans are not particularly keen on what they did with Joel and how they handled the fan response and backlash to the game and that type of thing. So maybe I'll do another video later this week where I go through and vote myself on these games, but for now you kind of get my general thoughts on them. I think Last of Us Part 2 is going to dominate, and indeed it should in some of these technical areas. There were some that I skipped of like art direction and again, score and music, best audio design. I think Last of Us Part 2 is going to dominate not only at the top of the ticket with the Game Award, Game of the Year, but also in terms of audio design, best score and music, best performance is probably going to go to Laura Bailey or Ashley Johnson. They have a lot of different avenues to picking up a huge night, and I think that we're going to see Naughty Dog totally dominate at the Game Awards. With that being said, I think that we'll also see a lot of success coming from some other games, particularly maybe a little bit of Valorant, maybe a little bit of Ghost of Tsushima as well. So that's pretty much my recap on the Game Awards and the nominees. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. So we got some big news this week regarding Wonder Woman 1984 and the release date. I'm going to throw it to YouTuber Austin Burke, who has a really nice breakdown. I'll also link his full video in the description below on this topic. Let's cut to him for just a minute or two and get the scoop on what is happening with Wonder Woman 1984, and we'll be right back with my thoughts.
In a video released on YouTube that has since been set to private, thanks to numerous users on Twitter sharing these screen caps and kind of proving to us that this is the case, it looks like Wonder Woman has decided to release on December 25th in theaters alongside an HBO Max wide release. Now that means if you have HBO Max, according to this photo, this film will be no extra cost to subscribers. So we have the Mulan method that Disney went with. You had to pay a bit extra on top of what you're paying for the streaming service. That doesn't look like it's going to be the case for Wonder Woman, so it looks like they're going more the Soul route. And it's funny because Soul coming out also in December on Disney Plus for no extra cost. So during Christmas time, if you have HBO Max and Disney Plus, you're going to get two massive releases from two massive studios. But I want to talk a bit about what the impact is going to be on theaters going forward, because while it is coming out in theaters, this is not a good sign for confidence in the theatrical industry, especially going into a very trying time for movie theaters and that industry in general, when we will be at a point in 2021 when we will be trying to get back on the right path. But and we don't know the level of success that a lot of these films have had, but we heard that Disney was happy with Mulan. We heard that some of these studios were happy with some of these straight-to-digital releases. So what is the impact going to be in general? What is the theatrical release going to look like for certain movies at the beginning of 2021? Because even though it's not necessarily something that I'm excited about, I still don't think the movie theater industry will be back to normal at the beginning of 2021, especially the first quarter. Even if we do have a vaccine or whatnot by that point, it'll still be a trying time for us to get back on track.
So, as you can see, Wonder Woman 1984 hitting movie theaters and HBO Max, with them directly undercutting the movie theater experience, because now you can essentially see the movie that ordinarily would only be on movie theaters. Now, the whole benefit of the movie theaters and the monopoly that they have over the industry is that if you want to watch a movie, you have to go to the movie theater to see it, you know, for the first several months that it's out. And if it's a really good movie, it's not going to be on DVD for like 6 months, you know, until after the movie theater experience is done. And I think as a result of that, it creates a demand for people to go to the movie theater, because obviously you can't watch the movie in any other way. You have to go to the movie theater to enjoy that film until it hits DVDs and hits, you know, Redbox and Netflix and whatever. So that creates a situation in which they can actually charge you $12 to eat popcorn, because it's like, hey, you want to watch this new movie that everybody's ranting and raving about and saying you need to go see? Well, you've got to come watch it in our uncomfortable, shitty seats with, you know, teenagers on their phones and texting and talking the entire time. And it'll be, you know, so there's that downside, but also, like, you know, the sound quality is great and you get fully immersed in the movie, and you're less likely to be on your phone because you're taking out 3 hours of your day to divert to watching this film. And that's a huge benefit of watching movies in theaters versus at home. I know with me personally, I get much more distracted if I'm watching a movie at home. It's harder for me to stay off my phone. If I'm in the movie theater, because I have manners and I don't want to be rude to other people, even if I'm bored with the film, I'm not going to get on my phone. And that makes it so that movies that I'm bored by in the moment, you know, if you give them a chance and you actually really watch and invest then and try to follow along with what the filmmaker's going for, you can find yourself invested in it by the end, even if it's not your cup of tea or whatever. Now, if I'm pulling up Netflix and I pull up a shitty movie on that TV, then I'm going to be on my phone in about 0.4 seconds. And I've watched, you know, 2 minutes and 26 seconds of this Netflix movie and I'm already bored. And that's what happens when I watch movies at home versus in the movie theater. So the movie theater going experience is very important for a number of reasons. it is so important for the same reasons we mentioned with GameStop, that we need to be preserving these fan experiences of going to the game store, going to the movie theater. And I do want to play an active role in ensuring that the movie theater is saved as an institution, so to speak. Obviously, we're in the middle of a pandemic and it's not safe for you to go to a movie theater, then it's not safe for you to go to a movie theater. But I think that on a broader note, going into 2021, as things calm down with the pandemic, it is of vital importance that we as fans go to support movies in the movie theater. And I will be making a particular interest in making sure that I go to the movie theater when it's safe to do so, to ensure that I can invest in making sure that this stuff doesn't happen going forward. Because as much as I like the idea of putting Wonder Woman on HBO Max, I don't like the idea of you undercutting the movie theaters. I don't like that part of it, because I think that we need to support movie theaters and ensure that they can succeed, because they do offer a very unique experience that we do not want to go to the wayside. Again, COVID has accelerated a lot of this. They've accelerated the GameStop crash. They've accelerated the digitization of the gaming industry. COVID has accelerated the death of the movie theater, right? It has pushed Disney's plan with the Disney Plus and Mulan, and charging $30 for Mulan, if you remember when that came out. That received a lot of backlash, but I assume they're going to keep doing that going forward. Can you imagine if this existed, this whole Disney Plus distribution? Oh, just pay $30 and watch it on your computer, whatever. Can you imagine if that existed for Endgame? Can you imagine not going to a packed theater and hearing the entire audience cheer and scream and cry at different points in the movie? Would you have the same profound feeling for that movie as you do now? I remember clear as day. I watched it with my friend Gavin. We went together in Raleigh, North Carolina, when I was a student at UNC. And we had a great time because, as I said, it was totally sold out. Everybody was ready to go. It was in the opening weekend. Everybody was hyped. It was a fantastic environment. It was like going to a concert or something. I mean, literally, it was like going to a concert where everybody at the concert is fans of that musician, and they're cheering on the songs, they're singing along, they know what's going on. That's what it was like watching Endgame with a bunch of other people that knew what the fuck was going on, and they cared about this stuff, and it made it fun. If I just watched Endgame at home, I might be like, oh, yeah, those teleportation scenes, where they time travel are really stupid. Like, you notice the flaws more. Whereas when I left Endgame, I didn't give a fuck about all the plot holes and about all that stuff. I noticed it, but I was like, wow, that was such a fun 3 hours. Because it was like we're all on this roller coaster together in the movie theater, as fans. And even though I don't know any of the people I'm watching the movie with besides my friend Gavin, I still feel like I'm right there along with them, watching along, which I am. And you do not get that experience watching a movie with whatever, you might have a setup like mine. You might have a bigger TV. If you don't know, I'm pointing to my 32-inch TV, which is a good size TV. It's fine. But most people probably are watching even on something smaller than that, where they're watching on their computer. And is it the same watching a movie on a computer versus hearing that score swell in full Dolby 7.1 surround sound and IMAX screen? It's just a totally different experience, and I don't think that one is necessarily better than another, but I do feel as though the movie-going experience needs to be preserved as much as possible, and fans have a vested interest in supporting that. So I do encourage you, whenever it's safe for you to do so, if you can, support the movie theaters, and the only way they make money is by buying popcorn. I'll be buying popcorn and shit like that too, because yes, I am annoyed paying $17 for popcorn, but at the same point, if it ends up that the movie theaters are going bankrupt, then the prices of that stuff are going to go up, just like we've seen with GameStop. I mean, the trade-in values at GameStop, since they've had the financial issues in the past 5 years, have gotten worse and worse because they need to make more of a profit on each sale. It's the same thing with movie theaters. Like, if they really start going downhill, then the movie theater going experience is going to just become worse and worse. They're going to cut theaters, meaning like they're not going to have as many showings because they can't fill up the showings as much. We want, as I think, a society, movie theaters to thrive, because they're one of the hallmarks of our society. And as much as I love Amazon and whatever, and that's all great, I do not want to see the movie theater killed amid this pandemic, amid HBO Max and Disney Plus and whatever. You can have Disney Plus, you can have this and that, and I know they're going to entice you and say, oh, it's included, you don't need to go buy this ticket for $10, just stay home and watch it from the comfort of your home. But I really think that I encourage you to think about it and think if you really do value that experience. And if you do, put your money where your mouth is and go support movie theaters. I know that I'll be doing that in 2021. Okay, that's the first episode of Nerd Table. Let me know what you thought in the comment section below. Make sure you subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and leave your comments and thoughts in the comment section below. My name is Slick Moth. See you guys in the next video. Peace out.